I'm here today to talk about the drum set, which is the term that we use most commonly in this era. It also will be referred to sometimes as a trap set, which is the old school kind of name, which originally meant a set of contraptions. So that was shortened to trap set. So we call it the drum set or the trap set. The most important part of the drum set is the bass drum. It is the lowest in pitch, and most often its function is in alignment with what the bass player plays. The unique thing about the bass drum is that it is played with our feet. So to do that, I just place my foot on the pedal and very simply drive the beater into the drum head. If I'm going to play quarter note figures, which would be a steady pulse, something like this, 3, 4. The idea being to play each note evenly and of equal intensity. I might also play another very common figure in a lot of our rock settings and grooves that you'll be studying in this course, which would be a dotted quarter note followed by an eighth note. It gives us this pattern right here. The next, and also equally important instrument that I'd like to talk about is the snare drum. So the bass drum is the foundation of our groove, and of equal importance is the snare drum, which is the opposite instrument in pitch and in function. It is the highest pitched instrument that we play, and because we play it so much, it's placed between the drummer's legs where they can reach it easily and it's very accessible. So if I pull the snare drum out here, you can see that it looks like the other drums, but what makes it unique is that the top head is the same, but the bottom head has what's called a set of snares. So in this case, they're wire snares, which are corrugated pieces of metal that when you tighten them against the drum head give a high pitch frequency. So you can see this little thing that I use here, a throw-off or a strainer it's called, will pull that metal pieces, those metal pieces up against the head. So when I do that, you can hear that there's a high pitch that's generated from the drum. Now that we have the drum set, we need something to play the drums with. And the implements that we use are from a variety of things. The first would be brushes, which are used primarily for soft playing, in the fact with these that you can have a sweeping motion rather than just a striking motion. Something like that. Sometimes we need a little bigger sound, but we still need the function of a drum stick. So there's a product made that we refer to sometimes as blast sticks. This particular product is called a root. It gives us a little stronger sound than a brush, not quite as strong as a stick. A very nice tool to use for the drums is the mallet. Mallets have a softer sound and yet can also be quite powerful. Finally, we have the drumstick, which is what we'll be using mostly for this course. The weight and size of the stick, as well as the structure of the tip, will give you a variety of sounds and also determine whether it's a rock stick or a jazz stick. So this is kind of a medium-sized, good all-around stick. There are a variety of strokes that we can use with the drumstick to create different types of sounds for the grooves that we're going to use. The most common would be an open stroke, where I play dead center of the drum, which stops the drum from ringing a lot and gives us a nice fat sound. This is used for a lot of rock stuff. If I move the stick off center, you get a lot of ring. So it's very important where the drummer places the stick on the head. Another important stroke that's used a lot would be called a rim shot, where I'm hitting the skin of the head at exactly the same time that I'm hitting the rim. This being the rim, this being the head. So if I come down, you get this kind of sharp attack, and it's used primarily in rhythm and blues, hip-hop, rap music. And you would use that stroke for every single backbeat in the song. Finally, we have what's used in Latin music called a rim click, or sometimes a cross stick, where I, holding a stick up in my hand like this and placing one tip against about an inch from the rim on the head and leaving it there, and with the other end of the stick, the back end of the stick, clicking on the rim. So I can muffle the drum a little bit with the palm of my hand to get the amount of ring and resonance that I would like. This is used in Latin grooves like cha-cha and rock grooves that are descendants of cha-cha. And it's also used a lot in ballads. It has a very high piercing sound. It's not very loud, but since it's very high in pitch, it cuts through large volume situations. The final part of the drum set that is actually a drum would be the tom-toms. In this case, we're using two tom-toms, a high pitch and a low pitch. And the idea being that they will fill out melodically the sonic area between the bass drum and the snare drum. So if I play the small tom here, sometimes called a rack tom because it's on a rack that sits on the bass drum, it'll generally have a much higher pitch than the tom that's on the floor, which we'll call a floor tom. So between the two, we have a nice variation in pitch. If I go around all the drums and play them one after the other, you can hear the melodic idea that we're trying to create. Finally, we get to the cymbals. We have the hi-hat, a crash cymbal, and a ride cymbal. The hi-hat is the most important thing that we're focusing on for this course because it's used most consistently rhythmically and a little bit for color. So the unique thing about the hi-hat, like the bass drum, is that you can play it with your foot. So it's two cymbals, a top and a bottom. When I step on the pedal, it brings the two cymbals together to get a chick sound. So we can hold this set of cymbals tight together. If I play with the stick, we get this sound. Or I can begin to loosen them up so I get a little softer ch-ch sound. Or I can open them up where I get the sound of both cymbals clanging together. Oftentimes, inside of a groove, we want a chirp or a bark, whatever you want to call it, where I hit the cymbals open and close them quickly. For color, we use crash cymbals. These are used mostly for punctuation points, beginnings of phrases, maybe endings of tunes. You can also play rolls. And it has a small bell sound. Finally, the ride cymbal. It's called the ride cymbal because it's the cymbal that we spend the most time riding the groove. Generally speaking, the ride cymbal will be used for a chorus section of a song, or maybe the ending where we want something to get bigger. It has a lot of sustain, so its function is to add color and to add white sound or background sound to the instruments, and it helps to blend everything together. If I play up on the bell, again, we get a bright bell sound. I'll play a groove for you right now demonstrating these cymbals. The hi-hat will have eighth notes in the right hand. I'll use the cymbals for color, the crash cymbal and the ride cymbal. 2 and 4 in the snare drum, and quarter notes in the bass drum, all 4 beats. Now that you've been introduced to the drum set, I'd like to call Mark back out here, and we'll play a little bit together and demonstrate for you a few of the grooves that you'll be learning in this course.